For a long time, OnlyFans was viewed as the women's get-rich-quick scheme. And the myth that OF is an easy way to make money still seems to linger
But if
today, with reports stating that some female students have admitted that they would turn to OF if money was tight. We've also heard that it's apparently empowering and it allows women to take control of their sexuality while simultaneously freeing them from the more exploitative sides of the patriarchal sex industry. But now with so many young girls joining the platform, we don't really need to speculate about the potential harms or consequences, because now they are taken to the internet to share with us themselves exactly what the costs have been for them for joining this platform.
all right, let's see.
No, it definitely is not easy money. In fact, the average creator...
Yeah, bro, listen, nothing in life is easy money. I hate when people use this entire slogan of something being easy money. Bro, even if you're going to be a scammer, you have to make sure that you are the best fucking scammer out there, bro. Like for you to not get caught, for you to be doing it at a long time to make the most money and not get caught, you have to ensure that you're the best fucking scammer out there. Drug dealing, something that most people consider to be, very easy money. Bro, you have to be the best drug dealer. Bro, most drug dealers are smarter than your average college professor teaching business class. Why? Because they have to be intelligent for them to be able to get away with doing what they're doing, right? So this entire slogan that people use for easy money, there is nothing in life that brings you a lot of money can be considered as easy money. Because you have to, regardless of whatever the fuck you do in life, you have to put in those reps. Right? So I don't believe in this easy money bullshit. Because if it was easy, go be a drug dealer then. Go be a scammer then, right? And to the case of what she was saying, and again, by no means am I picking up for these OF girls, right? But in the case of what she was saying with the whole OnlyFans thing, it was never easy money, because from the jump, most of these women, the average earnings on OnlyFans is like, what, $100 or so a month? That's nothing, bro.
Makes less than $200 a month. Now that it's become a lot more saturated because more people know about it, there's a lot more competition. Add on top the fact that...
And by the way, saturation in a business world is actually very good. Saturation just tells you that the market is in demand for more and more and more of, things of whatever it is that you're selling.
There are high-profile influencers as well as celebrities joining the platform, and it just generally makes it very difficult for your average woman to succeed, especially now that a lot of social media apps have become a lot more strict. So it's made it a lot more difficult for people to promote their profiles. So if you're thinking, damn, money is tight, why don't I just flash for some cash? Honestly, you are much better off finding whatever minimum wage job you can get your hands on.
She's right.
One, it will pay you more, and two,
you keep your dignity.
Less of the consequences.
Yep.
So let's actually talk about those consequences, shall we? No, I'm not going to bore you with the stuff that we hear all the time, like how it's going to affect your dating life or how it carries a lot of social stigma. I know that you know. I'm much more interested in discussing the sides that are probably less discussed. Like, since we are on the topic of money, I think that someone who is considering doing OF as a way to up their salary or up their income because their job isn't paying them enough should probably reconsider that. Because in some cases there have been, or many cases rather, a lot of people who have tried to join OF in order to try and increase their monthly earnings have actually been discovered by their employers, and as a result have actually lost their job, which puts them in an even worse financial position than before they started. Another thing to also consider that a lot of people think they can get around is your family finding out about your content. Not only finding out, but in some cases even subscribing.
Yeah, man, like once you're on the internet, you are prone to be, found by anybody that's out there searching. So
stepfathers have subscribed, or their dad's friends.
Have you recognized any of the names in here of people that you might know?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's been some guys that outwardly say we used to go to school together.
Wow.
Or some of dad's friends and stuff like that.
What, messaging you?
Yeah. I just tried to keep it very professional.
Yeah.
Keep it very professional, that's so embarrassing. Like, imagine your father or your stepfather or your brother or You know, anyone that you went to school with, finding out that you have an OnlyFans and now your cooch is just out on the internet. And then on top of that, you're not even making any money for you to, you know, if they were supposed to come to you and start teasing you about it, you could say, oh, fuck you, I made $100,000 this month. You know what I mean? That's embarrassing.
Isn't it? And I think it is also important to remember that there are all sorts of characters on the internet, and there are some people who are spiteful enough to find out who your family are and actually deliberately send them this type of content. This is something that many creators have discussed happening to them. One creator is Lily Phillips. She's been candid about the fact that her parents, in particular her dad, has been sent content that she's posted on her OF page.
Has someone ever messaged your dad besides Aunt Sarah?
Yes. I mean, my dad's had like my own nudes sent to him.
Oh, wow.
Bro, that's so embarrassing, bro. And just thinking about it from a father's perspective, bro, me personally, I would disown my daughter. I wouldn't talk to my daughter ever again, bro. Like, that is so, man.
Videos, papers, news articles, phone calls.
What does he say? Like, does he message you like, yo?
No, it was more of a tearful phone call of, I don't appreciate seeing that.
Okay.
I do think that as you become more and more successful and well known on the platform, this kind of stuff is just way more likely to happen to you. And so I do think that if anyone was to try and join the platform, they should go in it with the assumption that your family, especially your parents, are going to find out. Speaking of Lily Phillips, Stacey Dooley actually did a documentary on her, and I found it really interesting because we got to meet her parents. Listening to her parents share how they feel about what she does was actually quite hard to watch, because it was like listening to...
And you know what hurts more as a parent is knowing that you gave the best possible life to your daughter. You know, they grew up in a nice home, right? They always had, you know, a transportation, you know, to school or to anywhere they wanted to go, right? They never missed meals. There was always, you know, the water running, the lights on. Like, you gave them like a very comfortable life as a child. And then to see them turn to this is kind of like a slap in the fucking face. Like, why did I bust my ass off for so long and try to, you know, make the most amount of money that I can, and also spend a lot of money on you gaining, you know, the education that you got for you to then turn around to be like an OnlyFans 304, you know?
An intervention for a drug addict, as their parents beg them to stop what they're doing while telling them how it's harming them. Except the problem is the addict is not yet ready to sober up. Within the documentary, her parents expressed their desperation for her to stop what she was doing, stating that they would give her anything if it could make her stop doing the extreme stunts that she was doing, even going as far as to offer to sell their house and give her the money if it's money that is motivating her to stay in this line of work. But
nah, I ain't doing that, bro. Fuck no. Like, if she wants to be a OF 304, you know, tooting it up, you know, carrying on camera, bro, let her do what she wants to do. I ain't selling my house for the fuck no, man. Bro, I would disown my daughter, right, before I ever turn and then look, you know, to sell my own house, to take her off the platform, bro.
their pleas unfortunately do land on deaf ears, as Lily does make it very clear that she has no intention of stopping, although she does acknowledge...
And of course, because she's making too much money.
Sometimes I guess it just makes me feel quite selfish to put my parents through that. I mean, ultimately, it is selfish.
Yeah, of course it is. And bro, this girl... You can just look on her and just know that her parents gave her a very comfortable life. And this is where the confusion comes into play, is when women like this turn towards OnlyFans, right? Because now it's just basically a big, you know, FU to your parents, because this girl, I can guarantee you, she grew up in a wonderful suburb. The house is probably worth $600,000-$700,000, right? Maybe $500K on the low end, right? She went to a great school. There was no need for her to do this, right? But again, she went and did it. So that's why she's feeling the way that she's feeling, because 100% it is selfish.
Is it easier to just not talk about? Yeah, it's just easier not to talk about it, because then no one gets upset.
Exactly. And so when I'm around my parents, it's so wholesome. We don't even talk about work. We're just back to like...
Really?
Bro,
It's quite clear.
You made that decision. Don't sit there and cry about it now. And that's something that I've never understood with people, because you see, for me, I'm the type of person where if I've done something, I will own up to it. Yes, I did that. Right? If anyone tries to check me on something, yeah, I did that. So what? Right? Was I right for doing it? No. Right? But myself in that current moment in time, I thought that, that was the right decision for me to make. So I did it. Right? So don't, sit there and cry over a decision that you made yourself. Like, no, bro.
Based on how upset she is, that this is probably not something she really actually thought about. I doubt that she actually considered how this could affect the people she
And
loves.
just like most women don't sit and deeply think about anything, bro. Because again, most women have gotten used to it in their lives where someone will always come around and be their saving grace. So why, if there was always a safety net for you when you did something wrong, would you even sit down and contemplate, a bad idea that you have in your head? No, you wouldn't. And that's the case of most women. Most women know that at the end of them doing their nonsense, there is always someone there at the end that will help them bounce back from it. Right? So of course she's not going to be in the mentality where she's thinking that, okay, cool, I can, do this thing and then I can bounce back from it, right? And she then found out later on that, the implications that's going to come from this is going to be very harsh down the line.
I think for many young women who join this industry, they might have considered the consequences when it comes to themselves, but they often don't think about how those consequences will extend to the people they love. Because ultimately, we are living in a time where people say, do whatever makes you happy, but we don't exist in a vacuum. So although you might be signing yourself up for things while you understand the consequences for yourself, it's also important to remember that the consequences don't end with you. But to be honest,
That's true.
Even if Lily was to quit, there's no guarantee that her parents would stop experiencing all of this harassment, as we've learned from other creators like Nala Ray.
Like on the outside of that, there are huge consequences to your actions. Like
no
the
shit.
Amount of people that have like sent me and my husband death threats. The amount of people who have sent my husband things from my past consistently, week by week, is like so hard for him.
And for you dumbasses that go out there and marry these women, may God be with you, bro, right? Because, and as a matter of fact, thank you. Because someone has to do it. Someone has to marry these women to take them off the dating field, right, for other men. So thank you for your service, sir, right? Because I don't know what the hell is wrong with you niggas, bro.
Him to deal with, and then for me to be like ashamed about, because I'm constantly being reminded of the things I've done when I just want to live. I'm out of it now. I know I'm out of it, but yet I keep getting brought back to that because of ignorant people on the internet.
No, it's not about ignorant people. Your past is exactly who you are. Listen, oh my God. If you met someone that was a child, you know what, right? You know where I'm going with this. And let's say now you have children, right? But, that child, what, came around and said, oh, yes, I did that to children back in the past, but I am now a changed person, right? I haven't done that for the past 20 years. Like, my past doesn't define me. Would you leave your child with that person? Yes or no? You wouldn't. Why? Because if they did it in the past, they're more than likely will do it again, right? Because it's all about our habits. Our habits make us who we are. And if you have went down this path in your past, you have the capability of doing it again because it is a learned habit. And again, yes, I know people can change, but would you entrust your child in the hands of a child, what, even if they said they have never done that for the past 20 years? I wouldn't, and any sensible person wouldn't.
Wanting to remind me of the consequences that I deserve now.
And the same thing happens with murderers. If you committed a crime, or if you know someone that commits murders, right, and they killed like 4 people, 3 people, they went to jail for 30 years and now they're out, bro, I don't care what sweet story they want to put on about, oh, when I was in jail, I turned to Christ and I changed my life and, I've become a better person. I've learned to control my emotions. Good for you, bro. but I don't want you living beside me, right? I don't want my children around you. I don't want my wife around you. I don't want to be around you, right? So I don't care what good story you bring up, bro. I'm always going to look on you and side eye you based off of your past. That's just how the world is.
In their head.
What I also did find really interesting about listening to Lily Phillips's parents is they offered some extra nuance into this rising trend that we've seen of these OF girls saying how their parents support them and what they're doing. And Lily is one of these creators who used to say that her parents are very supportive of her. They say within the documentary that what they thought she was doing was just posting kind of the pictures that a lot of girls post on Instagram. Lingerie, bikini shoots. And I guess they probably didn't see a problem with that because they essentially just viewed it as glamour modeling. I mean, after all, like there are a lot of mainstream high-end fashion models who pose like that and who have those kind of photo shoots. So I guess they probably didn't see it as distasteful. And Lily herself also admits that she definitely downplayed what she was doing and she wasn't entirely honest with her parents about the extent of the kind of content she was posting online. However,
Of course, because she was embarrassed by it.
Because of her stunts, they inevitably found out what she was doing and they weren't very happy about it. And so I do wonder if this could be the more realistic circumstance of some of these parents who we hear are apparently supportive. Are they truly supportive or are they just not aware of what OF actually is? And so they might not really think of it as anything more than just being a YouTuber. Then I imagine you have the parents like Lily Phillips's parents who don't approve of what she's doing and have gone as far as to try and get her to stop. However, if they don't want to stop, you're kind of forced into making two choices. You either have to just unfortunately tolerate it because
cut
the
them off.
alternative is to potentially be estranged from your daughter. Because it's not uncommon for people to end up not speaking to their parents because they fall out over the fact that they're doing this kind of content. But there are, of course, those parents that are the exception who actually genuinely do support their daughter in doing this. Like Bonnie Blue's mum, for example. I saw her Channel 4 documentary and it was quite interesting to hear Bonnie Blue's
her
mum.
mother supports it because her mother is more than likely just like her, right? Because a good tree cannot bear bad fruit and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. So her mother supports it because she's just like Bonnie Blue.
Say that she basically essentially believes that everybody's morals
It's just that she isn't on camera.
and values would take a nosedive into hell if they were offered £1 million. I personally think that's more of a projection, but, you know, it's quite clear that she does support her daughter because of the fact that she understands just how lucrative this is. I do think the internet is quite interesting because it definitely has rewired our psychology. Because I do think that because things are online, people treat them with a lot less seriousness compared to if the exact same thing was happening offline. I mean, after all, we hear people saying things like the internet is not a real place or social media isn't real life. I think it's very easy for people to feel disconnected from their online selves, and so they might post and do and say things that they would never do in public or do in person. People might feel very
That's
comfortable posting revealing images of themselves or posing in very skimpy bikinis or lingerie online, but they would never, for example, walk like that in the street. Now, I know some people might say I'm comparing apples and oranges, but in reality, the internet is like a digital street. You don't know these people. You have no idea who they are. You have no idea what they're doing with your content. And so how different is it to just going out in the street where you're exposing yourself to people who you don't know? Yeah, sure, in the real world, you'd be exposing yourself to potential physical harm and physical harassment. However, online, you're still exposing yourself to digital harm and digital harassment, whether it's
Which
people
can also
sharing your
transpire
stuff
into
and
the real
leaking
world.
it all over the internet or sending it to your family members. And I feel like nothing really shatters the whole notion that what happens online stays online than stalking.
Over the last 2 years, I have reached my financial goals, but it came with costs that I never fully anticipated. I have been
Yeah, see, yeah, I just said that. So you putting yourself out on the internet and the repercussions that you get on the internet can transpire into real life. And
stalked multiple times. I have filled multiple police reports. I've filed restraining orders, and my anxiety is at an all-time high. The private life that I thought I could keep outside of social media is getting harder and harder to protect.
right, but this is not just, only for OnlyFans girls. This can happen to anyone who's, online and that has an online image.
every single day. I've also had a break-in that forced me to increase my personal security.
So no, this stuff definitely does not stay online. And
Fucking
I also think
weirdos,
that it's
bro.
quite
Breaking
naive
in,
to think that it
fucking
can't
weirdos.
have real world in-person consequences. And I do think a lot of people would act differently if they treated the internet like the street. If you wouldn't go outside and do that in the street, then probably don't post it on the internet. I think another thing as well that I've seen some OF creators discuss is the permanence of their content. For many of them, they don't actually consider the fact that their content will be on the internet forever.
And the reality is, images of my body are going to be online forever. Something I can never undo or take away, no matter how my life changes in the future. People will constantly judge and pick apart every decision you make. And sometimes the hardest part is staying silent because you realize that no matter what you say, some people will just never respect your thoughts or opinions because of what you do for a living.
And to be honest, is this really that surprising? When you consider just how young many of these girls are, it's quite normal for young people to just not think long term. But in reality, their content will outlive them. Even when they're
That's
long
true.
gone, their content will still be surfacing on the internet because the fact of the matter is, it's actually true that the internet is forever because people can leak your stuff, copy it, send it around. And so it's very difficult for you to completely erase all of this stuff, which is what makes some women feel like they just can't escape their past. Even if they delete their accounts and try and start fresh, it's hard because it's
Yeah,
always
but most of them, they're not thinking about that when they, initially get into it. The only thing that they're thinking about is making money, right? Because once the bread is coming in and once she can buy herself a brand new Mercedes, a new apartment, or even a house, right? And, a couple handbags and watches and jewelry, all that shit, that's all that they care about. And once that's flowing, everything else can just be pushed to the side. We only tend to see women look at their mistakes when they get at an older age, when everything starts piling on them.
come back to haunt them. And this is also the reason why some women end up just staying in the industry, because even if they want to leave and they don't actually want to do it anymore, it makes it quite difficult for them to move on to other things.
And not only because it's the case where they're in the industry for why they can't get other, for example, other jobs. It's also due to the fact that most of these women, when they're in the industry, they don't develop any form of skills in order to build a real successful business. So yes, then they stay within the industry. Right. So, but there are some girls, I've seen some OF girls who have, built real businesses with the money that they've made from OnlyFans, but that's a small percentage of them.
Was once perhaps seen as a stepping stone starts to feel more like an obstacle once they start desiring to pivot.
Yeah, because they learn no real skills.
Hearing how empowering and freeing OF.
Aside from internet marketing, that's the only valuable skill that they can walk away from is knowing how to go viral on social media, right? But they don't have the knowledge to take that virality and then apply it to different things.
I guess we need to start asking the question of just how true is that really? Because yes, it's definitely freed women from the traditional industry, and so they have the ability now to post what they want when they want and also keep most of the profits. So I guess in that sense it's freeing, but how freeing is it really when this kind of content will live on the internet forever and you'll never be able to escape it regardless of whether you delete your account? This kind of stuff will be sent to your family members, to your future partner or husband, your future children or grandchildren. Knowing that your images are immortal and people can do whatever they please and want with them doesn't really sound very freeing or liberating to me. Now, don't get me wrong, not every single woman who enters this line of work regrets it or will regret it. There are some women who generally enjoy and love doing what they do.
That is true.
Might not necessarily understand it, but
Bonnie
they definitely
Blue is one of
exist,
them.
and I think pretending they don't is disingenuous. But I have noticed a certain pattern with those kinds of women. First of all, they often get into it later in life, like at least 25 plus. They also don't get into it because of desperate times, and they also don't tend to be agreeable. I've noticed that the women who are the least likely to regret it are not agreeable at all. These are women who are very comfortable setting boundaries and defending those boundaries, and they quite simply don't do anything they don't want to do, regardless of who is asking them to do it. And I think because of that, they have a lot more control. And so it's harder for them to end up in these situations that they're more likely to regret, because everything they do is on their own terms, and everything they do is what they've actively chosen, not because they were pressured into it or coerced into doing it. But with so many impressionable, freshly 18-year-olds who don't really meet that profile, I do think that we're going to see a very large fallout in years to come, especially when you consider the reasons why many of them are getting into it is because of the fact that they're struggling financially. Because if you're doing something out of desperation, I definitely think that there is a psychological...
I don't think so. And again, I've mentioned this in the previous video that I uploaded, right? And by the way, you guys should go check that out, where I was basically reviewing what Piers Morgan, Sophie Rain, and then this other guy that was trying to run for governor of Florida. And basically in that video, I was saying that, the reason why most women are getting into this is because the majority of the jobs that are out there nowadays aren't paying a very livable wage to the point where they can have savings and invest and set themselves up for retirement, right? So I believe this is going to continue to grow, bro. Like it has only grown. This is not going to stop. It's going to continue to grow. There's going to be more women on the platform. It's not going to stop, bro. And especially with more and more girls, exposing how much they're making online. And some of these girls are making, bro, a doctor's salary in a month, bro. It's crazy. So with all of these things that are out there, there's only going to be, more and more women jumping into it. So that's where I disagree.
In ignoring your natural instincts in order to do something that you feel you have to do in order to survive. I guess ultimately, I think it's just really important for people to really consider the gravity of the decisions that they make.
The only way this will stop is if the men that support it stop supporting it. Right? And then the money pool dries up. That is the only time this will stop. But as long as there's money flowing into this industry, bro, OnlyFans makes billions of dollars per, and I believe they're the most liquid company in the world, right? And the most cash flowing company in the world. Bro, this isn't gonna stop, bro. This isn't gonna stop.
Because there are genuine consequences to all
at least not anytime soon.
The actions that we choose. And when it comes to something like this, you really, really need to think about it and consider it from all angles, because the truth is, once you're in, you can't really go back. But I would like to know what you think. Do you think that we're going to be seeing a lot more of these kinds of stories of young women discussing their regrets or discussing the harms or the consequences that they've experienced from joining this platform? Or in a strange twist, do you actually think that this stuff could become more normalized because of
100 bro, do you not see where the world is going? Like, yo, we have normalized Epstein. There is a Epstein clone out there, and I believe that this is Epstein, right? But nonetheless, there is an Epstein clone out there calling himself Palm Beach Pete. And he is gaining popularity, right? He's even being offered movies to play Epstein, gaining popularity for the sole fact that he looks like Epstein. If we are capable of normalizing a child, what makes you think that OnlyFans won't be normalized, bro? It's just another P-Hub platform. You know what I mean? Of course it's going to be normalized. And as I've said before, there's going to be more and more and more and more women on the platform, especially now that we're in the time where these big creators who are on the platform are showing their stats. They're showing these women how much money they make, per month. Bro, I was watching a video with this girl, I think her name is Jamie Liz, showing that she makes like $900,000 in a month, dog. Like the girl that jumps up on Lamborghinis and destroys them. She makes $1 million a month, bro. You think when a girl sees that, she's not going to be motivated to jump onto the platform? And especially when these same creators are giving these girls tips and tricks of how to become successful, bro, there's only going to be more of this shit, bro.
On there, because I have actually wondered about this. If there's an increasing number of young women joining this platform, that means that there's going to be an increasing number of people whose family members are on this platform. And if that becomes more and more common, could it get to a point where it just becomes normalized at this point? and the social stigma starts to wane because of just the sheer numbers of people who are doing it? Or could it be like smoking, where this thing had a buzz and people at the time didn't really think about it because they didn't know the harms, but as we are now seeing more and more of the harms, people develop an even more negative attitude towards it, and it becomes even more stigmatized, and perhaps we start seeing people putting in place policies and stuff to police it. I guess I'm kind of curious to know which direction this goes in, but I would be curious to know what you think. Do you think that this is a sign that it's going to become more normalized, or do you think that it's actually going to become more stigmatized? Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in general, so do let me know down below.
But yeah, man, as I've said before, I think it's going to be more normalized. The OF is still printing billions of dollars per year. It's not slowing down anytime soon. And as I've said before, they're the most liquid company right now, and they're the most cash flowing, the fastest cash flowing company right now in the world, right? So, cash flowing at speeds faster than fucking Nvidia and these different AI companies that are out. You know how much money you have to be making for you to be categorized as the fastest cash flowing company over a AI company? Oh, bro, this isn't going to slow down anytime fucking soon. Like, we can sit here and wish and hope for it, but it's not. It's not, right? And as a matter of fact, as the dating market becomes more and more challenging for men, right? Because this is where all of this shit stems from. P-Hub and all of these different, pornographic websites. The only reason why they exist is because the majority of men that are on them can't get girlfriends. And as we have seen with the standards of women becoming increasingly, higher and higher and higher, this isn't going to be lowered, bro. So you're going to see more and more and more and more men, fetch for this type of attention online from these women who are doing OnlyFans because they can't find a girlfriend in real life. So when you factor in all of those different things, this is only going to get worse. The money pool is going to get bigger, right? And because the money pool is going to get bigger, there's going to be more and more women on the platform. Just like what she mentioned earlier when she said that, the whole entire industry is saturated. And I was the one that that made the point saying that, bro, saturation is a good thing in business, because what saturation tells us in business is that a certain industry is profitable, right? There is money in it, right? That's all saturation means. You don't want to get into an industry that isn't either one, saturated, or on the incline of being saturated. Because if you get into an industry that isn't saturated, the pool of money isn't there. You know what I mean? So being the case that is saturated, bro, more and more creators are going to come into the platform because more people are going to be spending more money on the platform. Yeah, so that's my entire, thoughts on the matter. If you guys have any thoughts and comments, let me know in the comment section down below, because I would love to know what people's thoughts are on this entire matter. But that's my thoughts. And if you guys like the video, give the video a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. So peace out.